probably two. So we're going to do the first part tonight, and then we're going to do the next part on Monday. So today's assignment has homework. So if you want to if you have something to write with, if you've got a journal, you can make a note section on your phone. We're going to have a slide that like describes the homework, but we really want you to tap in when we're talking we're going to talk about some specific tendencies as we go through the call. And we want you to just be able to pinpoint and jot down, okay, yes, that's me. I saw myself do that this year, so that you can come and be really in tune and prepared for next week's call. So if you have something to write with, we're going to share our screen. You'll see the slides, but you're going to resonate probably more with one or two of these things. And then we're going to wrap it together at the end of the call to get your homework for next week.
All right. Can you see my screen? Let me go.
Yes, it's not in yeah, put it in present mode.
Present. Okay. Good.
Yes, it's loading, but yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So we are going to be talking about goals, but before we go there, we have to really think and take a time to like kind of reevaluate this past year, reevaluate our thoughts and our beliefs, because those are what drive our actions in creating and setting and going for goals in 2022. So to get us started, first things first, a quote that really stood by me, and this is something that we kind of got from the Kristen Boss Purposeful Social Selling podcast. If you don't listen to her, she's a great person to tap into. But she said something that goals not set are goals not met. So we're going to dive deep into like, what does that mean? Did you actually set goals for yourself? So I just want you to kind of think, be getting the wheels turning. Did you set goals for yourself this year? Yes or no? I'm going to be super transparent, as is Jessica. We never want to come in here and present ourselves in a way that's not true or real or genuine. And I will be very honest, this past year, I don't know if I had like PTSD from 2020, but I didn't come into 2021 with a lot of big goals for myself. I just didn't. I'm going to be very frank, very honest. And so I've been more in a maintenance stage versus a growth stage. And I sit here at the end of December and I look back. And for me, progress, being in a growth stage equals happiness. So I can look back on this year a little frustrated with myself because while I didn't set goals, of course I didn't have anything to achieve because goals not set are goals not met. I didn't really fall short, I guess, because I didn't really have anything I was shooting for. That also doesn't feel that good. So how do I feel about setting goals for 2022? I think I had to go through this year to really get honest with myself about where I am in my business and what makes me the most happy. But we're going to take you through some tendencies that we have when we look towards goal setting, and this relates to everything, not just the business, just goals in life, right? So let's go ahead and get into what is our tendencies when it comes to actually setting goals. And as I was going through this, I realized, no wonder I didn't set goals because I'm in one of these things. All right, Jess.
Okay, so for me, let's start to unpack these different things. And honestly, Raquel and I, when we were talking about this, we've actually been in all of these zones. So if you feel yourself in recognizing yourself in all of them, that's okay too. I started setting safe goals, meaning when you're setting safe goals, you're setting goals that you know you have a guaranteed outcome. It doesn't stretch yourself. You're not emotionally invested. And that can mean one of two things. You have a minimal amount of effort that's going to have to go in. It's a minimal commitment level. So you're saying it, but you're kind of like, meh, you're kind of half in, half out. So for a safe goal for me, coming in, I'm going to say 2022, I'm setting goals. I'm going to say, I'm going to hit Success Club every month. I'm going to hit Success Club 5 or better every month. That's a super safe, non-committal goal for me because I've hit Success Club every month for 7 years. I'm going to hit it. I'm not even going to have to blink or try. It's something that it is a non-negotiable for me. I'm going to do it. So that's really safe because it doesn't stretch me. If I was saying I'm going to hit Success Club 30 every month, that would be totally different. But for me to just say, I'm just going to sit back in 2022 and I'm going to hit Success Club 5, there's no emotional investment because I know it's going to happen. It's not going to take a whole lot of stretch for me. I've done it a lot and it's okay. Another way to set a safe goal is to make it so far out that you don't really believe it's going to happen. And so you're not really emotionally attached to the fact that if it doesn't come through. So for me, I did set goals this year. I remember at Summit, I set goals for like, I'm going to be 9-star, I'm going to hit elite, I'm going to do all these things. Yet the action that I took to reach that goal was absolutely zero. Like, did not match my mouth. The words coming out of my mouth had no real emotion tied to it beyond that moment. And I think I set those things because I felt obligated to, even though emotionally I wasn't in the place to follow through with it. So emotionally, the risk was like, well, that's really far from here. So if I don't hit it, it was such a big goal. It's like, whatever. It's like saying I'm going to be 10-star or superstar. Or maybe you're a new coach and you're saying, I'm going to be 5-star in a month. It's such a big goal and it's so far from where you currently sit that if you don't hit it, there's not a huge emotional investment. You're like, oh, it was a big goal anyway, whatever, moving on. So kind of looking at your goals that you set for last year and what you're thinking about for next year and figure out, okay, am I somebody who's setting that safe goal because I'm afraid of the emotional risk that it might put on me? Because you're saying, I don't want to set a goal that's too tangible and too purposeful and something that is going to be achievable, because then when I don't hit it, I'm going to feel like a failure and that's going to hurt. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. Number 2, goal avoidance. This is something I do as well. You stop setting goals because you're filled with the fear of experiencing disappointment of missing the goal. Has anybody done that? Put that in the chat. How many times have you avoided hitting a goal because you're scared of what it's going to feel like when you don't hit that goal? What other people are going to think of you, what you're going to think of yourself, what it's going to feel like to say I was going to do this and then I didn't. So instead of me having to think about what it'll feel like to go through that, I'm just not going to set goals at all. I definitely got to that place at the end of this year, like probably, I don't know, 3-4 months ago. I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to do anything this year. I'm not going to set any goals. I'm just going to survive this year, which sounds awful coming out of my mouth. But again, being totally transparent, I was like, I'm just not going to do anything because I was so far from hitting the goals I thought I was setting for myself that I was like, instead, I'm going to do nothing and I'm going to just maintain. And maintaining is just keeping the business afloat. We'll talk more about that next week. But just know, maintaining does not mean that you don't show up, and it doesn't mean that you're not bringing in new people every month, because you can't maintain a network marketing without working. But in order to reach that next level of business, I wasn't doing that. So I just didn't set goals at all because it made it a lot easier to slide into the end of the year not hitting any goals. So those are 2. Let's look at the next 2.
The next 2 tendencies that we have when goal setting is having that goal shame. So Brene Brown says, setting a goal puts you in a place where you're vulnerable. Saying it out loud, you know how it is. It's like you want to say a goal, but if you say it out loud, it puts you in that vulnerable state. And Brene Brown says the opposite of vulnerability is shame. And that's a place where we don't want to do. We don't want to feel that. Our brain tries to keep us safe. So we're so consumed. We're in a goal shame state. We're so consumed with missing a goal and like, okay, well, what are people going to think of me if I even put that big goal out? What are people going to think of me if I don't hit it? What am I going to think about my business? What is that going to mean about me? Right? And we take that on of like, if I don't hit this goal, what does it mean about me? Right? And that's not where we want to go. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the next thing is having a goal hangover. And I've definitely been here as well. So this is, again, all the spectrum of having safe goals, avoiding goals, having shame if you don't hit a goal and what would that feel like? And then also maybe you did set a really big, audacious goal and you hustled your butt off and you hit it. And it was like, hell yes, I did it. But it cost you a lot. Maybe it cost you your sleep. Maybe it cost you relationships. Maybe it was added stress and you're like, I don't know if I can maintain this, right? And you're kind of just in a burnt out state. I have definitely been there too. And so the thought of continuing to set big goals just feels exhausting. You have that fear of like, well, what if I can't maintain it? Or what if I can't do this again? Or if I'm going to set a big goal, if this almost crushed my spirit, what am I going to do if I set a bigger goal? So you kind of like to have this hangover of like, I don't think I have any more energy in me to give. So again, I just want you to think about, where do you fall on the spectrum over the past year? in your business, did you set safe goals? Did you avoid setting goals? Did you have some shame about, like, I've tried in the past to set these goals and I've fallen short, and that was embarrassing. That put me in a place of being vulnerable. I felt shameful. What does that mean about me? Or maybe you've crushed it. And maybe you're coming off and you hit some big goals, but you have a little bit of like, I'm exhausted. I don't know if I can maintain this. Whatever you're feeling, just know we have felt it at some point in our businesses. I'm coming up on my 7-year anniversary as a coach, and I've gone through the spectrum of this. So it's normal. But being able to identify these tendencies is key in order for us to really be realistic and give ourselves a chance to set a goal that we want to actually work towards, that will be enjoyable, because that's the process. We want to have fun along the way. In order to have goals, part of the journey is enjoying the process. But until we can kind of look back and think about where we are, we're just going to kind of repeat the same thing in the next year. And that's not what we want for us. So the first step is awareness. And that's what we kind of took you through right here.
Okay, so your success is inevitable. There's another podcast by the same, we'll share this. We can actually share this, the link to this podcast if you've not listened to some Kristen Boss. One of her success mindsets is your success is inevitable. Disappointment is also inevitable. So when you think about this business, if you have a success mindset saying, no matter what, success is inevitable. And you think about, she uses the example of steeping tea. If you put in, you've got your hot thing of tea and you put in your tea bag and you take it out after 3 seconds, are you going to have a good cup of tea? No, you have to sit it in there. You have to let it steep. You have to let it do its job. But if you do that, it is inevitable that the tea from the bag is going to leak into the cup and you're going to have a cup of tea. It is inevitable. It is fact. And if you have that kind of mentality going into your business, that success is inevitable. It may not happen on my time. It may be happening on God's time, which always looks different than our time. But if I'm consistent and I show up, success will happen no matter what. If you have that mindset, you're going to be successful. There's no way around it. You will become part of the Legacy Club. You will have a successful business. You will have whatever it is that you desire out of this business with that mind frame. But you also have to treat this business like a business. We get so wrapped up in network marketing being a success-only club because we see so much success celebrated that we forget to look behind the scenes and realize that it's still a business. There is not a business out there that does not have ebbs and flows, that does not have disappointments, that does not fail, does not launch a product that totally tanks, that does not have years where they maintained instead of grew, does not have years where they lost instead of grew. All businesses have ebbs and flows. And if you know that about your business, you're going to feel a lot less guilt when you have those moments in your business. We get trapped thinking it's success or bust. We're either having all success or we suck, we're out, network marketing is not for us. But instead, when you really pull back the layers and you look over the course of, okay, these are what my last 12 months look like in 2021. This is realistically the effort that I put in. Over the long haul, over the year, this is realistically what I got out, whether that's financial, whether that's emotional, all of the things that come from coaching. And then really look at it from a business brain instead of a, did I hit my goal or did I not? That's very surface level. It's not pulling back the layers of the business. And that's what we're trying to do here. We always get so worried about that short-term disappointment that we end up living that prolonged disappointment by never reaching a goal at all. So what gets us trapped here? You're going for Success Club. You miss Success Club 1 month, your business is over. You stop trying the next month because you're pissed that you missed that goal. 90 days later, you've done nothing in your business because you're still mad that you got 2 people instead of 3. And you let that moment of disappointment ruin your entire year. The same thing happens when you were shooting for Emerald and you didn't hit it. You only held 4 weeks out of 6 for your Diamond. You didn't hit 2-star and you thought you were going to. Every time you have that pocket of disappointment, when you look at it as an all or nothing, I'm going to bust or I'm going to hit this success, you're not looking at it from that long, that big pivotal, this is a business. I'm going to miss the mark sometimes. I'm not always going to hit my goal. But if I'm not shooting for anything, I'm not moving forward. If you do not have a purpose, if you do not have something out there that you're headed towards, every day when you get up to do your power hour or you get up to show on social media or to make a reel or to show up with authentically in your challenge group, What reason do you have to do that over dealing with the kids' chaos? Or I'm tired, I didn't sleep last night because the baby didn't sleep. Or, oh man, there's so many Christmas things going on at school. I don't really have time to put in any effort into this coaching business. If you don't have something out there that you're shooting for, whether or not you hit it on target perfectly, you're just going to stay stagnant, or even worse, go further and further back until you just throw your hands up and say, meh, it's not for me. When in reality, you were just looking at it through the wrong lens. And so hopefully we're going to flip that as we go.
So a couple things, and we're talking about disappointment here, and I don't want this to be negative, but I just want to like normalize feeling disappointed, because I think sometimes we think we're on an island and we're the only person who's ever had a failure or disappointment. And if you were to look at my business over the past 7 years, my pile of failures and disappointments far exceeds my pile of successes in this business. Now, do I still have a successful business? Absolutely. Absolutely. I would not live the life I have if it weren't for this business. But if you were to add up all the times I have failed, fallen short, been disappointed, frustrated, failed, it is very large. So I just want to like normalize that that's okay. But why are we sometimes afraid? Again, our brains want to keep us safe. So it's easier to not shoot for goals because we get to stay in our little safe spot. But a lot of that's because we don't trust our ability to handle or process a negative emotion, right? I don't know about you, but I'm an Enneagram 3, which means when I feel an emotion, I'm like, I don't really have time to process it. I'm going to pack it away. When I can come time later, I'll figure it out. And so I just kind of shove it down. And that doesn't help me process the emotion, because often I don't come back to unpack it, right? And then it explodes and it's a huge thing. Then if it's like, hey, it's okay to say I'm frustrated, I'm disappointed, let me feel the feelings and let me let it go. We also sometimes see an emotion as a fix rather than temporary. Emotions are just feeling, they come and go and they're fleeting. But unless I actually address and be like, dang, I'm really frustrated that I had a coach that I poured a lot of time into quit on me. Or like, damn, somebody returned their total solution pack, like that sucks. I'm starting out at -2 success points. Like, feel the feelings, allow yourself to say, yeah, that does stink, and then move it along. But when we don't deal with it, it kind of weighs on us, and it stays rather than being temporary. And then lastly, we take on our emotions as our identity. So you may feel disappointed, but you're not a disappointment. This is something that I like tell my kids all the time. Like, it's okay to fail. It's okay. You don't have to be perfect. You can fail, but that doesn't mean you're a failure. And I think sometimes as adults, we forget that too. We can be disappointed and then we're like, God, I'm just not cut out for this. Like, this is just not, I'm just not somebody who's meant to be successful. No, you were just disappointed. That doesn't mean anything about you and your ability to have long-term success. It's okay that you didn't hit that goal on the timeline that you thought you would. That doesn't mean you're never going to hit it. So I just want to encourage you, allow yourself to feel the feelings of disappointment. Recognize that, hey, this is a temporary feeling. The highs are high and the lows are low in this business. And then also know that it means nothing about me and who I am. It is not an identity. It is just an emotion that I can feel and then let go.
So let's reframe our thinking of missed goals and failure. P.S. in the chat, did anybody miss any goals this year? Maybe it's just Raquel and I, and we're just like having a conversation and you guys are just hanging out for it. Did anybody else miss a goal? Please put it in the chat so we don't feel alone. Laura did. Okay. Krista did. Okay. I feel better. Brooke, thank you. Okay. There for a minute. I thought maybe we should take that poll just quite quickly. Now, this doesn't mean that you didn't also have some really great highlights in your year, because Lord knows they are there. How much easier is it to see the failures? They glare at you like a beacon. And you're like, oh yeah, I forgot that great thing that happened. Oh yeah, I forgot that I made all that money. Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah. We forget those things. So again, we're not focusing on the negative, but we do want to bring it to light because it's so much easier to sweep it under the rug. And then we're like, we're just going to do the same thing again in 2022. I'm going to set these goals and not hit them. Here we go. That's what we want to avoid. So reframing, what are you making a missed goal mean? You know, when you miss a goal. So for me, I said, I'm going to be a 9-star elite by December. And here I sit, not even close, like not even a little bit close. My team, not even a little bit. What does that mean? You know, do I take that personally? Does that mean that I am no longer a good leader? I'm no longer a good coach. I no longer belong in this business. You know, when you make it about you personally and you make it like, oh man, everyone's going to just think I'm just this big fat loser because I missed this goal. you pull so much of that on you, and that pushes you into that goal avoidance. It pushes you into goal shame. It makes you so scared to try again because you're so scared to feel that way again. But if you reframe it and you lift it off of you, and again, treat this business like a business, it's not a personal reflection of you. Business is business. Leave it in your office, whether your office is the kitchen counter or it's your bedroom closet. Make this business a business, professionalize it, and leave it where it sits. Treat it like a business from start to finish. Give it the respect of a business, but also don't let it invade your personal life, because it is a business. It is not you personally. Because when you make it about you, it becomes so much more emotional than it needs to be. Pull the emotions out. This is my goal. This is a business. This is the outcome I'm going for. This is what it's going to take to get there. Let's get my ass in gear. That's how it needs to be. It doesn't need to be so emotional, and it doesn't need to be like, oh, if I miss it again, it just means that I suck, and it means that I'm not worthy. And then that gets in your brain, and that gets your anxiety going, and that gets you out of your health habits, because you're so wrapped up in this feeling, in this persona that you thought you needed to be. So first and foremost, separate yourself from the business. You are not your business. It is a business that you're running. You are the CEO. But don't forget, you're also a wife, a mom, a sister, a friend, a fur mom. And all of that stuff should not be affected by what's happening over here, unless it's positively because you're pulling funds in that you get to go spend and do stuff with. Other than that, what's happening in the business should not negatively affect any other piece of what's happening over here. And to keep them separate will help you be more successful in both.
All right, now here's something that I have never done before, but it's so genius because we talked about your success is inevitable, but also just know disappointments and failures are inevitable too. So if we can know that going in, one, doesn't that like lessen the pressure of like, hey, when we have a disappointment, we have a failure, we're like, hey, you know what? I knew it was coming, and sure enough, it popped up. So before we set goals, we also want to create what we call a fail plan, meaning when you have that disappointment or you miss a goal or whatever the case may be, how are you going to choose to think about yourself, your business, others, and your vision if you fail to meet the expected or desired outcome, right? Because that's a goal, is just an expected or desired outcome on a specific timeline. So let's say you have a goal to achieve a certain rank in quarter one. And let's say quarter one comes by and you come close, but gosh darn it, you don't hit it by that timeline. How are you going to choose to think about it? Are you going to be able to zoom out and say, hey, you know what? Dang, it was a missed goal. You know, I know this doesn't mean anything about me and myself or my team. I know it doesn't mean anything about my long-term business. Does it suck? Yeah. Am I allowed to be upset about it? Absolutely. Let me feel those feelings. And then your next plan is, okay, now it's time to evaluate. What's your plan to evaluate? How are you going to look at it? Are you going to connect in with your upline and say, okay, I need a different perspective. What could I have done differently? Here's what it's looking like. Here's what my action hours look like. What can I do differently from the outside? What feedback do you have to give me? Create a plan to evaluate when we do miss goals, when we have disappointments. How are you going to evaluate so that you can figure out what to do better next time as you continue to keep shooting for that goal? And the third part of your fail plan is create a re-entry plan, because like Jessica said, oh my gosh, I see it all the time. Coach misses Success Club for the first time. Let's say 10 months strong, and on that 11th month, gosh darn it, she doesn't hit the goal, and that hurts, and I get that. But we sit with it and we're like, that stinks. And we take it with us into the first 2 weeks of the next month. And by the time we wake up and we're like, dang, I got to get it going, it's the end of the month and we're freaking out and we don't hit it that month. And it's like, shoot. And it's this cycle. So how can you create a re-entry plan for yourself? So if you miss a goal, what's your timeline? Right? How long are you going to give yourself to be upset about it? I always tell myself, I'm going to give myself the rest of the day. Some people say 5 minutes. That's awesome. I cannot move through my emotions that fast. So I give myself a day of, I'm going to feel sad for myself. I'm probably going to binge some Bravo TV because honestly, that makes me happy. Don't judge me. My toxic trait is I love trash TV. I'm going to binge trash TV. I'm going to give myself a time to be upset about it. I'm probably going to vent to Jessica, probably my husband too, and probably my mom. And then when I go to bed, by the time I wake up, I got to keep it moving. That's my re-entry plan. I give myself a day. You got to figure out what that re-entry plan is for you, but you have to create a fail plan so that when we have those disappointments, we recognize them and say, hey, I recognize, I know that this is totally normal and part of it. I need to figure out what I can do to reevaluate so that I can do better and, move forward to hitting that goal, and then create a reentry plan for yourself so that you know how to handle it. Again, creating this plan before you need it is huge. If you're one of my coaches, I love to tell you, when you're having a really good day, please video record yourself about how pumped you are, so that when you do have a bad day, you can go back and look at your own video of yourself being like, today was an awesome day. I'm crushing my business. It feels amazing. I'm so excited. And you get to feel that energy. It seems so silly, but I can't tell you how many voice memos I have of myself where I'm in a really good mood. And when I'm down, that helps me. Same thing. I have an email folder in my email of all the messages that my clients who have gotten great results or are super happy. I have a folder where I save those. When I do get a cancellation, or I get, a client who just literally ghosts me, and I'm like, I must be the worst coach ever. And I go, no, I'm not. Let me go to my folder in my Gmail account and read all of the nice things that clients have sent to me, so I can remind myself I am a good coach. That's part of my failure disappointment plan to help me bring myself back up. So create a plan for yourself. I'm telling you, it seems so cheesy and so, I don't know, it is. This is just cheesy, but I'm telling you, when you're disappointed and when you're in that low state, you will be so happy that you have a plan to help you bring you back up into that energetic state that you need to be in.
When you have a healthy viewpoint of negative emotions like disappointment, shame, and failure, you're able to set healthy goals so that you can actually get excited about them. So we wanted to kind of tear down any kind of almost expose anything that we didn't know was there. It's so nice to sometimes have to do different kinds of exercises to find holes that you didn't know were there. And you have to find and kind of expose, okay, I had a weak area there and I didn't know. I didn't know I was in the habit of doing goal avoidance. I didn't know I was in the habit of setting safe goals. I didn't know I was in the habit of just setting goals because it seemed like everybody else was setting goals, subconsciously knowing I wasn't actually going to follow through with any of the action that it took to achieve. But we just get in those habits. And until you kind of break through that ice and you break free from that, you cannot change it. And the definition of insanity is to repeat the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome. We don't want that for 2022. We want you to go in very clear, whether it's going in clear saying, this is going to be a maintenance year for me. I'm not trying to hit superstardom and I'm not trying to hit elite. I'm not trying to go off the rails. I'm just trying to maintain. Or maybe you're coming to 2022 like, I'm ready to make a move. I've been sitting idle and I'm so freaking ready. And it gets you excited and fired up. It doesn't matter which route you're taking, but we want you to be clear as glass because it takes two different business approaches. And we're going to talk more about that as we get into next week.
All right, last thing, homework before next week. Get honest with yourself about how your 2021 goals went. Maybe you crushed it and you're like, guys, I didn't have a lot of disappointment or failure this year. And if that's you, go on with your bad self. Take that energy into 2022. But if 2021 didn't go as what you wanted, no worries. Just be honest. Write it out and be like, hey, this is my goal. I fell short. Here's how I'm feeling. But then also ask yourself, what have I made that mean about myself, right? Be very clear and be like, have I taken this on personally and taking it on as identity versus, hey, it's just part of the process. I know that I can keep moving forward. Allow yourself to feel any emotions that come up: frustration, disappointment, maybe a little bit angry at yourself. Like you're like, I know I could have done better. Allow yourself to feel it and then let that shit go. Okay. But you can't let it go unless you allow yourself to feel it. Determine what kind of goal setting tendencies that you've had, right? Again, awareness. Do you set safe goals? Do you avoid them? Do you have that shame? Do you have that hangover, that goal hangover? Where do you fall on that spectrum? Be aware of it. And then you can know, hey, that's my tendency to do that. But moving forward in 2022, when we talk more about it next week, I'm going to make sure not to allow myself to go there because that feels safe, right? And then create your fail plan. What does that look like for you when disappointments do come up in the next year? Maybe when you do fall short of it, what is that going to look like for you? How are you going to be able to reevaluate? How are you going to create a reentry plan? How are you going to keep moving forward in the midst of disappointments? Because it's just part of it. And then brain dump your 2022 goals. Again, we will talk more about this next week, but what do you really want to achieve? And we're going to talk about this more, but like, what would really get you excited? What's something that's like, I'm a little bit nervous to say this, but man, this makes me excited. And again, don't fall trapped to like, I feel like I should set this goal for myself. If you feel like you should, that ain't the right goal for you. But be very honest of like, what does it look like for you? What are those goals? What is this business? What is it something that you think you could do for you? Okay. And then decide if you're choosing that growth or the maintenance phase. Again, maintenance doesn't mean you're just coasting. You still got to show up. I would consider my business to be in maintenance, but I still showed up. I still hit Success Club. I still came on every team call. I still mentored coaches. My business financially still did very well. I still grew in income, right? But I think in recognition and just, where I thought I would be was more maintenance, but that doesn't mean I didn't show up. Now, growth is going to look a little different. We'll dive deeper into that as well, but be very honest, brain dump some of your goals out so that we can really dive deeper into them next week. All right. Any questions? I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Let me see if anybody had any questions or anything that we want to talk about.
From the chat, it really seems like so many of us are in the same boat, which is awesome because together we are better. So don't feel like you are like in your own little island. Everybody's kind of in the same boat as a team, which is great because it gives us a good, honest place to start from and a good, honest place to get ready for. And our goal is to make sure that you feel very clear, very driven, very ready before January hits, because as we know, this is our industry. January is like the worst time to start a new goal because everybody starts by like the 20th and they're like, oh, what? It started January 20th and half the month is over. So we want you to feel really prepared before you go into that so that you know exactly what you need to do and what that looks like, because it's going to look different for everybody. Because again, you're running a business. You're not running a reality show. You're running a business. And it has nothing to do with you personally, but it has everything to do with your business. And as a CEO, we want you to be prepared to show up. And the light broke, okay? Beachbody, freaking Beachbody sent me this light and I can't figure out how to make it work.
Same.
Jeez Louise. Anywho's, on that note, it's 8:32. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? God, I thought I was doing so good with this light and it broke.
And then just a reminder that Job One is available for customers on Thursday, right? The 16th is Thursday. So obviously preferred customers, coaches can have already gotten it, but regular customers can purchase it on December 16th as well. So just want to let you know that. All right. Hopefully this was helpful. I promise that we will be a little bit more high vibe next week. I don't want you to feel like
very high vibe.
Very high vibe, but we just want to be very honest with you and let you know, hey, we're in it with you and we're excited to kick off 2022 crushing those goals. Okay. All right, guys. Hope you'll have a great evening. Bye, y'all.
On the social.